Hi, hopefully by now that you have a contract on the table, and we're going to go through this contract in person, but I wanted to give you a couple little highlights that you can sit through at your house while it's quiet and you can kind of absorb what's going on with the contract. We're going to send you your contract and I'm going to go through it with you line by line. This video is a couple minutes longer than normal, but this is going to point out the highlights in the contract so you're comfortable with what you're looking at. All right, so follow along, get your contract out, and we'll go line by line. So page 1, pretty much line 23 is going to be your purchase price, your deposits, and your loan amount that the people are asking. We pretty much care about line 38, purchase price, and line 23, how much they're putting down as binder deposit. Those are our key things on that page. So if we go on to page 2, you're going to see couple little ways that they're going to finance. They're either going to be on line 53, 66, and line 72. That talks about FHA, VA, and conventional. Typically we're going to see FHA, which is typically how people are financing these days. We'll also see conventional. We like conventional. VA is a little bit different, a little bit tougher, but really not too bad on a seller. So the only other thing we need to pay attention to on this page 2 is line 105, it's closing date. So we definitely need to talk about the closing date, and usually it's 30 to 45 days, but that's something we need to watch in the contract. On page 3, there's just talks about closing dates and getting a clear title. All that stuff happens behind the scenes. The only other thing we need to pay attention to is on line 144, it's survey. We're going to try to use an old survey. However, if it's not acceptable to the title company, they'll have to do a new survey. So that's the only thing we have to pay attention to on that page. Page 4 is 2 highlight things that we need to pay attention to. One is the paragraph talking about buyer pays items. You'll see all those things checked off in the little boxes that we need to look at for a buyer to pay. Typical buyer closing costs. We can look at those, we can talk about them if you want, but that's on the buyer side. Paragraph 9, starting at line 203, is all the closing costs that the seller typically has. All those little check boxes are what's typical for us to pay. Those we're going to outline and follow along with in your closing cost sheet. That's going to be another video, but that's something we need to eyeball right there, paragraph 9. Page 5 pretty much just talks about default and your binder deposits. That typically doesn't happen. If a buyer defaults, we're going to try to collect their binder deposit. Typically that doesn't happen unless they just withdraw for no reason. Page 6 on paragraph 13 talks about the property disclosure. A buyer can check all these things out. It's on them to check for flood zone and mold disclosures and airport zones and all that. That's on them. Here's another highlight that's very important. Paragraph 14 on page 6 is line 328. It's talking about inspections. This is one of our biggest things. Page 7, first line. In 10 days, they have to do a home inspection and give the results to us. That's our biggest thing when we're heading through to the inspection period. So basically on the 10th day, we should have a report and a repair replacement request in hand. From that request, if we want to say, yes, we'll fix all this stuff, or no, we don't, everything becomes negotiable on that 10th day. If they pass 10 days, then they bought the house without subject to any kind of repairs. So that whole paragraph and page 7 deals with the home inspection period. That's very, very critical. We'll talk about that again another time. But just know that on the 10th day, that's when we need to know what's happening with the repairs. Page 8, here's another big one that people trip up on. Line 402, it's talking about possession. Buyer gets possession at closing. So basically, when you come to closing, you come there with the keys to an empty house. Everything stays in the house that's attached and according to the contract. So your stove, your ceiling fans, your fence, your mirrors, your chandeliers, ceiling fans, all those stay. You would only take things out of the house unless they were excluded. Washer, dryer, refrigerator are usually negotiable up front when we're doing our contracts. So make sure you don't take anything that's supposed to stay behind, because that sometimes will cause a huge delay at closing. Paragraph 17 is just some additional addendums that are not too much to worry about unless we talk about them. Page 9 is just some other little junk stuff. Talks about your social security number. Says if you want to get a legal help for the contract or whatever, you can. It's your right. Time of acceptance is on paragraph 26. It just talks about when we need to accept this and get it under contract. It's not executed until both signatures, buyers and sellers, are on the contracts together. And then page 10 is the info page. It talks about your marital status, buyer signatures, seller signatures, and then the agent's company's signatures and contact info is on that page. I'm sorry this is so long, but this is key. We want you to understand everything that you're going through. I gave you the highlights. Pretty much if you get the highlights, then you're home free. If you don't understand something, then just give us a call and we'll go through it in more detail. But we are very caring about how you understand this contract. We don't want you to sign anything blind. All right, thanks a bunch. Talk to you soon.